And in here, I have...
A watt is different than the emission that's happening, right?
I understand that.
Right.
But on the emission point of it, we have more power here on our hip.
Get up to the mic, sir.
We have more power here on our hip than the cell phone towers actually do, because the density is right here.
Well, I would disagree with that. Let me give you the data. So it depends on your phone. If you have, let's say, an iPhone puts out over 2,000 microwatts per meter squared. Your cell phone towers, depending how close you are, if you're 100 feet from your cell phone tower, you can be 39,000 microwatts per meter squared. So I'm going to tell you, your cell phone towers, depending on how close you are putting out more than your cell phone.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. I understand that, but it's not, but depending on how close we are, this is actually more power. By the way, thank you, Anthony.
Hello, my name is Christopher Smith with We Are Change. My question was actually just stimulated from the last question was, so does the fact that these kids are all crammed in close proximities, does that multiply the effect that, you know, a bunch of kids sitting in the same room?
Well, if you were sitting in this room and you all had one of these tags on you, then you would be exposed to everybody else's tag every 45 seconds as well as your own tag.
Yeah, so it's not...
So yes, every single person in this room, because this room is not 300 feet in size, would be exposed to every single one of those emissions. So that's a constant, just boom, boom, boom. And if you could visualize it, if you could actually see those little clouds of numbers around everybody, this is what the kids are exposed to if they're in the auditorium. There's a whole lot of EMF radiation.
And then I wonder what
around.
the cumulative effect from, say, if they start implementing it pre-K through, what, college, I guess? Might as well just...
It's 1,920 exposures per day, if I did the math right there, for just one tag. That's assuming you bring it home and you put it in your house and sitting on the table.
Does anyone have an idea how Northside can even legitimately say that this has anything to do with safety or attendance for that matter, when the fact of the matter is that there's many students that have destroyed their own chips or abandoned them, or many students, I've talked to parents where they said that their students haven't worn it. And I'm wondering if maybe they're just not wanting they're wanting things to slide during this pilot program year, you know, and I'm just curious, how can they...
That's a question for Andrea. Andrea, how are people responding to this? Because wouldn't it be possible to just take your badge off and just stick it under the box over there and then skip off campus and nobody would know?
It is very possible for them to just leave their badges on campus and to go off campus. You know, if you have the same class as somebody or the same lunch period, you just put it next to them, say, hey, I'll be right. You know, you go and you do what you gotta do if you don't feel like being there. It is very easy. These RFID tags are very inaccurate to place a student on campus, because I can leave mine on campus, and if it's in my locker all day, well, I'm not standing in front of my locker for 8 hours, you know? So...
Andrea, but you would face a penalty if you clocked it out.
But that's the thing, though. She would, because she's raised, you know, she's standing up for her rights, but the other children that keep quiet, that's my point, is that there's reportedly students, there's one here today, and where they've literally destroyed, taken the batteries out, submerged it in water, what have you. There's multiple ways that they're destroying it. Or just flat out not even taking it to school. And I've had a mother tell me that her son hasn't taken his to school in over 3 weeks and hasn't received one notification. So for all the school knows, this kid's been kidnapped, but it's really just over at his grandma's house. But so those are things to think about, and it makes me wonder, why is the school, if this is indeed for the number one thing is for attendance, if they're not actually utilizing it for that purpose, then it just doesn't make sense, and the safety one is thrown out the window with, you said, with the reverse technology and being able to read it. So I just don't even understand, and I do understand why they probably didn't show up, because how can you defend something like that, you know? It just doesn't make sense. I'm just torn, like, why is this such a hard fight? And it's because they really won't, like, they won't face our questions. And
again, that's back over here. I would say that that's a prime example of your question. Tell me your name.
Chris.
Chris's question is the very reason that we needed someone from Northside Independent School District or at least the manufacturer here? Those are great questions for Northside, but I think as Catherine pointed out, the website didn't take questions.
I mean, at the
But
three,
that's
at
a
the
good
three board,
question.
the three board meetings, we went to the very first one at the beginning of the school, and there was a numerous amount of us that were able to speak. Or not a numerous amount, but the second one, there were 17 people that wanted to speak, and they cut us down to only 5 would let us talk because they said they've already heard it. The third one, they wouldn't let anybody speak, and it's frustrating, you know.
Well, we're going to let people speak tonight. Ma'am, if you, please.
Can I
come
make
on
the
up.
comment to what he said?
Yes, ma'am.
I think there's 2 reasons people do things. One is the good reason that sounds good, and the one is the real reason. I think the jury is still out to what is the real reason that this RFID stuff is being implemented. Because just what you said, people are students are leaving them in. They're gone. They've been kidnapped for 3 weeks, and no one says anything. So the good reason is for safety for our students. Don't buy it. We have discernment. We have souls that can detect when we're not being told the truth. That one's not the truth. So what's the real reason? And I think that's the question. That's the hard question. Is it money? Is it control? Is it conditioning? What is it? Is it to do a study to see if these RFID chips cause behavioral problems in the students pre and post? I'm a scientist. That's some data that I would be taking. So I think we need to be asking, what is the dang real reason this is happening?
Dr. Presley, up next. Did you want to go ahead? Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
I just wanted to know what we could do through the Texas legislature to get this nipped in the bud statewide, or at least an opt-out or something.
Great. So there have been 3 fronts to the effort to keep programs like this out of our schools. We have the judicial front on the religious grounds that Andrea and her family fought tirelessly to make that all the way up to the 5th Circuit Court of Appeals to determine that her religious freedom wasn't worth as much or more than the money that the school is going to be getting. And it's a real tough lesson that this young lady had to learn about how far government's willing to go to institute the programs that they want. So we have the judicial side. We also have, of course, the local effort, which is arguably the most important for the Northside Independent School District to be hearing from the people of this community about where we draw the line with the use of technology, especially when it comes to children. We also have the legislative effort. So we're working, Texans for Accountable Government is working with a broad coalition from the ACLU to the Republican Liberty Caucus, building a coalition, a strong group of folks that are going to help to get 2 bills passed. Well, we really only need 1, but we're working on both of them. There have been 2 bills introduced, one in the House by Representative Colcourse out of Brenham. She's introduced HB 102, which prevents school districts from requiring students to carry around RFID tags. There was another bill in the Senate, Senator Estes from Wichita Falls. Senate Bill 173 has been introduced, and it has the exact same language. It's worded a little bit differently, but it's virtually the exact same bill. And what we can do is let the committee, who's going to hear this bill, Public Education and the Education Committee in the Senate, let them know that this is something that's important to you, that you're working at the local level, but you are looking to the state legislature to protect your children from the local government here in San Antonio and other districts that might want to move forward with a program like this, because all they see is dollar signs and not understanding the humanity that is being lost when we're tracking children like livestock. They need to hear from you, and if you are working with Texans for Accountable Government, we're going to let you know action items, the phone numbers to call, the emails to send, and it makes a difference for them to hear from parents, to hear from each and every one of us that this is something that's important. We've created an action alert. It has all the details of the bill, as well as the phone numbers, emails, and addresses. Handwritten letters are going to be the best. That way it's about humanizing. That's part of the motto of Texans for Accountable Government, is speaking on a human level and connecting with these people about the precedent that we're setting by allowing the abuse of this technology to be used in our schools. So they need to hear from you, and start talking with your neighbors about about this issue, because most people aren't talking about it. Talk about what you've learned today, because there's a very distinct difference between a passive tag, like you tap to get into a door, and an active radio frequency microchip, like the ones that are implanted in these badges, which constantly emit a signal. So really start humanize, harmonize, and localize your effort, and we're going to be able to stop this program and keep it from spreading all throughout Texas. And I'm happy to answer any questions about the details. It might get a little boring, the details of the legislative process, but we'll be here later. We have the action alert. Chipfreeschools.com is the website we've created. We're going to keep updates on there, as well as tagtexas.org, which is Texans for Accountable Government's website. And I'll be here afterwards if anybody wants to talk about how we can really dig our heels in to protect our students in these Texas schools.
Texans for Accountable Government, thank you. Heather Fazio there, she had an action alert. I guess I've got what we call a breaking news alert. This just in, Matthew. Okay, right? Please welcome the late Matt Simpson to the panel. We're going to introduce you to Matt Simpson in just a moment. He is a legislative liaison for the Texas ACLU, American Civil Liberties Union. Okay, mouthful there, RFID. But before we introduce Matt on our panel, I do want you to meet a Northside parent. This parent has been to several Northside meetings, board meetings recently, and she has some questions for Northside that she didn't get answered. She was hoping that she would get some answers tonight. Let's see what happens. Leticia? Please welcome Leticia, a Northside mom.
Yes, good evening. Heather, thank you for making it happen, and everyone who's here. We really appreciate it. I am a Northside parent. I'm a former Northside school teacher. I taught with them for about 7 years ago. But I have 3 children in the school system here, a senior, a sophomore, and a 3rd grader. And ever since I heard about this on the radio, I made every attempt to go. I went immediately. The first time I wasn't allowed to speak because I didn't sign up in time, whatever. But then the next time, I was one of the parents who did speak. Like he said, second time, they canceled most of us out, and only 5 spoke, and the 3rd time we were just, may as well had duct tape on our mouths. It was very disheartening to see that with this district that I used to work for. Anyway, I wish they were here. I did send an email to them, or someone, about it on the website, because that's the only way you can communicate, it seems. And I asked, will there be an opportunity for parent input, and when will you actually take this pilot and expand it? And I received an email saying they would probably decide at the end of March, and that yes, there would be opportunity for parent input. Well, I showed up. I don't know what else. I haven't seen anything else like this, posted by them. So if they were here, I would ask them, when will we get to learn, like we've learned tonight, of the effects? When will we get to give our other questions that we may not have even thought of yet? And also the whole idea of using it for school attendance, how can we really, or how can the district really say that they care about our students, and they are going to make sure they're in school? I know a senior who tossed his up on top of the school building. He says, so I'm always at school. So as a parent, I wouldn't know if my kid was in attendance or not in attendance. Mine go to a different high school, so the voice, thing calls me, your son was not in period 1, 2, 3, whatever. So I know, and I can say, hey, where were you? With that ID, he could toss it on the roof, and I'd never know anything. How does that really show that they care about my students' education? And is this really a good use of our taxpayer money?
And one thing I would like to point out is that we already have extensive technology in our schools. We have surveillance cameras everywhere.